to their service personnel in the building to see what they thought about returning back to school. They said as long as all the safety precautions, they feel confident that the staff can return. Cooks were more curious about the foot traffic in the cafeteria, because staff does go in and out of the cafeteria, and they'd like to keep that concealed to just cooks if we do go back. They're concerned with the children returning, of course. We've got some of the high school aides were concerned about classes that had 30 kids in it, when our group settings are at 25. That's a concern when we're not supposed to gather more than 25. Some other things that, and what people don't know, a lot of our service has already been on the front lines. Our maintenance crews were called back to work, and they've been working. Our cafeteria managers have been working, boxing food and putting on buses. We have summer crews out in the building already working together, working on buildings. So service personnel has already been on the front line this whole pandemic. They do want access, they want to be able to come in the building and have parents being able to touch base with somebody. I personally had problems with Schoolology with my granddaughter. I had one teacher contact me, and that was her credit recovery teacher. She contacted me once a week to make sure I didn't need anything, if we were on track, if we needed anything. Her core teachers I never talked to once, voice-wise. I sent an email, and it took a week and a half to get an email back from one of her teachers. So do I think personally, I need this is my personal, I need to be able to call the school between 8, half a day or whatever, to be able to contact my teacher. Because if they're, with her, she is one of the kids that are struggling. And if I can't talk to the teacher, I need them in the building to be able to talk to them. The aides are more than willing to help the teachers out, doing packets for the kids that can't do online. But I think their most concern is the kids coming back. Pre-K, how do you social distance 5-year-old kids or 4-year-old kids? You can't. I had one teacher reach out to me and told me to bring up tonight that pre-K they could do 2 days a week, 10 students a day. It would be easier for the teacher and the aide to be able to keep the kids social distancing if we called the kids back. Do I look for that? If our numbers keep going up, I'd say the governor is going to not allow that to happen. I just need, we need to be able to have access to our teachers, easier access. Like I said, I have core teachers that I couldn't even talk to for my grandchildren. And so I didn't know if we were doing it right or not until I got the live grades. So with that being said, like I said, the bus drivers, I just got a notice from the bus drivers, a text just now. They had put out on the transportation website how they felt about opening school. They're ready. The ones that responded, I can't say they're all, just the ones that responded. They're ready to come back to work. Now, with that being said, there's a plan for bus drivers being worked on. Am I right, Jimmy? Yeah, and I mean, we don't know how it's going to work out for the bus drivers because they do morning runs and afternoon runs. We don't know, but there'll be something in the plan for the bus drivers. So they're not going to be sitting at home doing nothing. And I've got confidence in Jimmy to, work something out with the bus drivers, and he'll talk to the bus drivers if they, when we return on the 18th. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Tanya Reinhardt.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for letting me speak again. I would say that I think 100% of us are ready to return to work, but that's a huge but there. I'm vice president of AFT and someone who is willing to strongly stand up for people, and in doing so, you tend to attract a lot of people with concerns that will approach you and say, I'm really concerned about that, and I'm proud to take those concerns. With that said, I have spoken to employees across the board, not just teachers, but also service personnel. And just in the past 24 hours, I've had at least 50 conversations with at least that many to come through the remainder of the week, and probably an additional 50 to 100 next week that are planned for. So I'm not coming with my feelings, I'm coming with what I'm collectively hearing. So looking at level 2, concerns are that the plan is suggestive in a way that, where social distancing is feasible. If you look at the infrastructure of some of our buildings, just going to the bathroom is a major issue in being able to social distance. So employees are feeling that they're vulnerable about their safety, and they're also feeling vulnerable about liability issues if they're not able to, safely maintain these social distance guidelines, and then they're also being under the umbrella of a plan that is suggestive rather than saying that this needs to happen. Lots of folks are wondering why the blended learning option was taken away out of the plan. I know when we did a survey as AFT before the plan even came out and before numbers started to increase rapidly, we had at least, we had almost 60% of people that said, if we had to pick between 5 days and blended learning for smaller class sizes, then we would go with smaller class sizes. And on a different, and we had 193 people take this survey, by the way, with one being an administrator. So it covered a whole area of people. And also there were around 80% of the people that responded to the survey that felt like reduction in class sizes is something that they would want to feel comfortable coming back in to school buildings at this point. And those conversations are continuing to happen. I've also been a part of statewide conversations where parents have been involved, and some from this county in particular, and they're wondering why there's no blended learning option. Ventilation systems. I think a lot of us are worried about those on good days. So, then we're going to be put into a situation where, most of us don't have windows that can open. And, I'm sure that is another safety concern. And we have people working in rooms that don't even have windows or that are, extremely small. Another concern is, and I feel like we all feel like this is kind of coming to a point, but we need to be educating families and employees like now on what the differences are between virtual learning and remote learning. I learned a ton from some school counselors yesterday. There's a world of difference. And, I will put my 2 cents worth in here. I think that we need to emphasize the remote learning piece because it places a value on the teachers and the staff in this county that have a wealth of expertise to reach their students. I know a plan is required, but it's becoming increasingly clear that it really feels like an impossibility in this moment. I thought about the book, Horton Hears a Who. And we've got to listen, we've got to hear those voices on that piece of dust. We're all down here talking about this. And we're all sitting on this, what seems to be this traumatic hamster wheel ride of, looking for solutions that only lead to a labyrinth of other of issues. And it's causing a great deal of stress. And what we really need in this moment is somebody to say, you know what, this is going to be the plan, and we're going to keep people safe. And it's going to give families, communities, and our employees enough time to get their head around it and plan accordingly. Because if we wait till the last minute to let people know, it's only going to cause greater anger, stress, and division between all of the stakeholder groups that are involved in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd, did we?
Hi there. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. Great. Good. Okay, so my name is Rebecca Speakman. I'm an itinerant teacher for the deaf and hard of hearing in Harrison County. And I'm coming to you today. I don't love doing this kind of thing, but first and foremost, I am an advocate for my students, and my students are low incidence, meaning there's not very many of them in the school system. So I want to make sure that the voices of my students' parents are heard and the concerns that are unique to my students are considered. So when you're dealing with all the CDC guidelines and the guidelines that we have to take in consideration, a lot of those guidelines pose additional obstacles for my students. So the masks that we may need to be wearing is a big obstacle for my students because they have to be able to lip read. And there are measures that my supervisor at the county office has been very proactive about, and I appreciate all the help that she's given. But even if the teachers are wearing masks that will be able to help my students lip read, they are going to be missing out on a lot of things around them with their peers who have to wear masks. So I want to make sure that that is something that people are considering. Even with a face shield, the audio, the acoustics, and being able to hear a voice is masked. And with the technology that we have available to help my students hear with masks or face shields, we have the issue of sharing those technologies within classrooms and from class to class, which could pose a problem with exposure to COVID. A lot of my parents have said that they don't want to keep their students home because they need that interaction with the teachers and the visual interaction. However, first and foremost, their safety and health is most important, and a lot of my students have immune compromised situations. So I've heard from a few of my parents that they're a little bit conflicted because there's no choice of having, say, me, their specialized teacher, who I've been with some of them for years. And those children and I work very well together. And if they homeschool or if they do the virtual school, they won't have my specialized services. So I think that there's some concern, frustration that they can't have, the safety of their child at home, but also have the specialized services that they receive from me and other services at school. Now, I think a remote learning might be the best of those worlds, but that's not a choice at this point. So that's where their concern is and their frustration. A lot of my kids have problems transitioning with a hearing loss. You have to have a lot of different means to help you transition from one place to another. And if we're in school with all these new guidelines and then we're pulled out of school because of exposure and then put back in school with other guidelines, that's going to pose a big obstacle for my students. There's many kids also of my students who are being raised by grandparents or who live with their grandparents, with their family, extended family. And I have one student in particular who the mother has said that, she's been very careful with what she's told the student, but the student has come to her and listed all of these anxieties that they have. They don't know how they're going to eat lunch if they have to wear a mask, but they don't want to not wear a mask. And if they wear a mask, but their friends don't wear a mask, that makes them nervous. So I think that it's important to consider that it's not just the parents and the teachers that are having anxieties about this, but it's also the students. The other people that I represent are the itinerant teachers, and I want to make sure that our voices are heard because our situation is very different from the classroom teacher. I see 9 different schools, and if I start at a school in the morning, by the end of the day, I might have attended three more schools, so a total of 4 in one day. What happens if by the end of the day, I find out that the first school is going on, virtual learning or remote learning because of exposure, but by then I have exposed 3 more schools by the end of the day, and how will that be handled? Also, I don't have a classroom in each of the schools that I go to, so I'm trying to figure out the options that I have for seeing my students. Will I be given a room in each school that I could use, and will it be ventilated? Again, the face masks for my students, the lip reading is so important. Will they be wearing face shields or masks? There's just a host of things that I'm wondering about in my situation that's so diverse and unique from a classroom situation, and my students, I don't want their voices not to be heard. Thank you.
The old business item A, reentry plan, if there's no objection. No objection?
I have no objection.
Okay, we will move the reentry plan to the next item. Ms. Stetler.
Okay, if you'll look in your, the board members have a copy of our reentry plan. And I just want to say, well, first of all, I want to say thank you all for coming, and we are hearing your messages. We're looking at the emails and reading all your concerns, and we really are hearing those, and we understand, and I just want you guys to know that we're trying to put together a plan that's comprehensive. We put this plan out. It's really the first time I believe the public has seen the plan. They've been working on it. Dr. Hagan and the group has been working on that really since the beginning. I mean, they've been thinking about things and how we can adapt a plan to fit everybody's needs. And as you know, the information is changing every day, and we're meeting every week, and we're trying to incorporate those changes that they're requesting us to make from the governor's office. We have the health department guiding us, and we've allowed the health department and a local physician to look over the plan. It's not perfect, for sure, and we're going to take into consideration all the things that you're telling us and you're emailing us, and we'll try to incorporate that, but still listening to the health officials and the folks around here. But you guys are the ones that are out there. You're hearing it. You're on the front lines. We know, and working in a school setting for most of my career, I know what those concerns are with social distancing and wearing masks with children. It's not falling on deaf ears. I'm sure the board is very concerned about that too. There's a whole other piece, though, that we have a lot of parents that are concerned as well to get their children in school. So it's a difficult situation to be in, but just know that we are listening to your concerns, and we're going to do all we can. If the governor is saying, right now, they're wanting us back in school, we're looking to see how that is. There was a blended option at one time. I think that was the orange in the really original plan, if you guys had a chance to look at that. So, yeah, it was a Doug Hogue thing. Yeah. So, anyway, we can go back and visit that. I do talk with other superintendents, and we're all trying to at least coordinate so our counties, at least locally around us, are all on the same page when we're trying to send out messages and things. But I'm telling you, the messages are coming in just constant with different ideas and different things to do. I do want to reassure you, though, that the team up here and our purchasing department and finance and Mr. Lopez, everybody here, we were ahead of the game in ordering supplies, cleaning materials, masks, all those things, because they're not available now. And I do speak with other superintendents around the state, and they're not getting those things. So that's a plus for us as far as just, we know we've got, hand sanitizers available and all those things. So that was I guess you could call that was a low-hanging fruit. At least that was something that was concrete that we knew we could get done, and we're good there. Now, it's the big decision as to how we get kids in school safely. And I know that's on everybody's mind here. It's on everybody's mind at this table. And we are listening and hearing what you have to say. And there's nobody here that appreciates you more being here than we do. I mean, really, to let us know how you feel and what you're thinking. So anyway, the reentry plan, the board has a copy of that. Of course, it was published, and you had a chance, hopefully. I think that's where most of your questions are coming from. And I'm hearing, we are hearing comments about another blended option. I mean, I don't know what the board's favor is as far as looking at another. We've seen that in different ways. Sometimes bringing in a half of a group, say, and I'm thinking of like a Bridgeport High School. If you bring in half of them, it's still going to be difficult to probably.
Do we need to make a motion to approve this to start a discussion? Because I would like to voice my opinion.
No, I don't think this requires a motion, as this is a plan. It's a never-changing plan, so we would have to vote on it every time it changes, which I don't think is
It's just the
reasonable.
current plan, so.
Yeah, I don't think it needs an official vote, but,
Okay, I get now.
yeah, you can comment on, I mean, you've had a chance to look at it as well. So-
I would like to make my comments on it because, first of all, I've received hundreds of emails, which I totally appreciate. I did start initially responding to each one, and quite honestly, it got overwhelming. But they were all read and very much comprehended. One thing I do know, there is a lot of fear and there is a lot of separation, just not here, but everywhere. And although I have personal feelings about this, my personal feelings can't be, the thing guiding me right now. After looking at everything, I think this is nothing but confusion. I haven't even read the whole thing, and I know everybody has worked very, very hard on it. But I don't know how we can expect teachers, parents, and students to know anything about this. And it just really, really concerns me. What really concerns me is the fact that I think I don't want to say wasting time, but I think it's time that Harrison County steps up like we always have and say right now with the cases going up, kids don't return and teachers do. Teachers go in at 8 o'clock, their normal schedule, and that's when the kids are online. They need to be accountable. They teach the class and the kids are remote learning. Therefore, the kids aren't being exposed, teachers aren't being exposed, and there's no risk to them. They walk in, go into their classroom. We don't have to worry about emails not being answered or people calling at 9 o'clock at night, because that is wrong. And that is what happened. And I think what I have gathered and what I feel very, very strongly about is that we don't continue with this nonsense and all this different stuff, because I, like Sherry, agree that ultimately the governor is gonna say, hey, kids aren't going back. And I just think, I just think right now, we need to look at this, whether I want to or not. I want kids back in school, but I think we need to prepare parents so they can, if they need childcare or whatever. And we aren't, social services. And I know people are gonna have issues with babysitting and stuff, but I'm here for the education, not for social services in that aspect. And the glorified babysitter, I understood that. I mean, there's only so much the Board of Education can be responsible for. And that's how I feel about that. And I'm not discounting anybody's concerns about not having babysitters, but there's a lot to be considered here, and we got to take out what we're responsible for, and that is education. And also feeding our kids, which we have done more than any place probably in the East Coast, if I had to put my bets on there. I just want you to know that I feel we need to start a plan where the kids stay home and the teachers still come every single day, their exact schedule, and they teach and they have their lunch hour, the kids have their lunch hours. We have spent so much money. Every kid in our county has iPads now. We have worked on the internet service, And I just think we have to step up here and quit with all of this. It's not helping. It's not helping anybody's positive or moving forward. With that being said, and talking to some instructors, and I'm telling you, we can't teach like this. I mean, it's not gonna happen. It's impossible. I can't even breathe. I'm ready to pass out, and 20 minutes ago I ordered a face shield. So I don't get plastered in the newspaper because I think I'm gonna pass out. And that's the truth. And I've received emails where if we send back teachers and students, as a board, we're responsible for possible deaths and illnesses. That's not fair either. We didn't create this virus. We are not medical professionals, and we are not social services. We are here for education and to do what is best for the students and our staff in Harrison County. So, speaking with some teachers, they brought up a good point, especially one, that in the spring it was a little easier because they had a class and he knew all the students. It might be more difficult not knowing the students and starting these classes. So I thought about that. And I know that Villanova has rented tents and stuff like that, but that's too far-fetched for us. There has to be a personal experience, and I think we should take the home visits for kindergarten to our entire school, even if it's meeting, and I think we need to involve our county commission, our cities, our towns, and communities, and teachers meet their students, you know, they set up a time, they come to the park under the pavilion, so they get to know and they can ask, do you have internet service? And they know what's going on at the house, or do a home visit on the front porch. I think that's what we need to be concentrating on. I'm sorry, instead of this. So I'm not in favor of this. I think there's too many things that are just in case, and to have one school on and one school off. I think we need to focus with our technology on remote learning and consider that for the rest of the year. Hopefully we could go back in January. As for athletics, there is no way you can have athletics without contact. I believe we can't cancel athletics, and I don't want them canceled, and I think that should be up to a parent and some type of waiver signed. But I don't think we need to base our education plan on athletics. And I just, I just think that if a parent does not want their kid to be involved, because there is no way you can play sports and not have contact. It's that simple. And if a parent wants them to play, let them play, and if they don't let them. So my final thing I want to say is I really think we need to focus on remote learning right now and not a week before school. And I feel very strongly about that. My one other issue is how will that affect us funding-wise if we do that? Will it?
If the governor decides to open schools and we go back or choose to do remote learning and the teachers are working, doing remote learning, I mean, they're still our students and we'll still get funding for those kids.
Are our classrooms
Yes.
set up where a teacher can have remote learning, like they go into their classroom, they're only one there, and
Like
all their
Skype
students
or
are like
something?
this, like we have right now, and they teach the class as though they're sitting there like you all, except they're there. And the teacher is not
Yeah.
exposed, the students aren't coming in and putting their family in jeopardy.
Well, I guess to dovetail, and I agree with Ms. Messenger on, most of all those. I mean, I'm of the opinion, one, I believe in science. This isn't going away, it's only going to get worse. I don't see any way we're going to be able to do in-class instruction, at least for the first 9 weeks, if not the first semester. So she is right, we need to kind of move away from that, move into making our distance learning better. And that's correct. If we don't have to worry about all this, let's worry about making distance learning better, because there are too many variables if we do go back. If we go back into the classroom with all of the students on day one, we will be completely closed by the end of the week, and it would be futile, because we'd need a full-time staff member here with a dedicated number, just because Johnny goes to the emergency room tonight and he has a positive test and he's infected. Well, at that point, you have to shut down his school. Well, his brother goes to this school, so you need to shut that down. He rode the bus, well, we need to shut these. We're just gonna be chasing our tail the entire time. And people may not want to know, it's just much better. If we start out, everyone in there, our teachers are gonna be sick, and we're not gonna have anyone to distance learn. But if we start out distance learning, the thing, hopefully, we get a couple weeks into it, and the numbers start dropping off. By the end of the 9 weeks, we can go back to school full board. But we can't do the opposite. We can't
Exactly.
go in, everyone gets sick, and then expect to teach after that. We have to, I'm of the opinion we need to plan on our teachers in there, and the only ones in there, with our service personnel in the schools. Start that way, and then hopefully the numbers get better, and we can go back to normal. But if we don't do it that way, we're never gonna be back to normal. The numbers are gonna keep climbing.
Todd, I know we talked about setting up with our distance learning or remote learning, like you were talking about those students who live out like in Wallace, or who don't have it. Have we got that where we're using the radio waves to?
That's the long-term, that's the long-term fix. I mean, that's not something, you just snap your fingers, unfortunately, it's fixed. So we still.
But can we do hotspot, we'll have bus drivers back not driving students, can we not hotspot the buses and have them to drive to those areas? Leave the bus there?
Do some things like that if there's cell service in those areas.
Or pay for their hotspot. I mean, if it comes down to
Yeah, the problem
that.
is, like in Wallace, if you don't have self-service, you can't get it anyway, so I understand that.
Don't forget about the agreement we were talking about with the county commission and the situation that was going to put us in.
Yeah.
Where we were going to go and be able to find out where the students are, and then we would be able to get money from the county commission to assist with that.
The governor did dedicate, I think, 10 million out of what he was planning for COVID for the roads into high-speed internet. So there are some of that, and I think Ms. Stutler got a call from Senator Manchin's office to that effect too. So there is that, but in the meantime, if we can try to get some buses, of course, our drivers will be back, we're gonna need
not
them
have
to do
students.
a bunch of things. So if they have to drive a bus to remote areas and act as a hotspot, whatever we have to do. But I do agree that this is a heck of a plan. It takes a lot, and you have to have a plan, and it's all in there. But it's really not gonna work if we send it back and we follow this plan and people start getting sick.
I just think
Either
we
way,
need
let's
to give
spend
people
our time getting better at doing distance learning.
That is why I mentioned working with the county commission, local communities, cities and towns. Let's say we go to Wallace and, okay, that area is not good. Let's work with the town of Wallace. I remember during election, they had a fire station. Let's get Wi-Fi there with the help of the county commission or whoever we need to, so these students have access. There's not that many, but one is too many, but we can address those areas. I do feel it's extremely important that the teachers get to know their students. And I think the home visits or setting up meeting at pavilions in the different towns and while the weather is
Well, even if
good.
they do, worst case scenario, if they do one-on-one team meeting with the student, something of that, till you get them all, till you've at least had face-to-face, even if it's over, to actually see them. I agree with that. It'd be nice to do, face-to-face, but however
And that
you
can
can
be
do it.
I
optional
wouldn't
with the
trust
teachers.
face-to-face at this point.
No, I think what she's meaning is, in
Meet
a
at
park
a
where
Over
it's,
pavilion.
Teams,
Where it's
yeah,
well-
over
yeah,
Microsoft
or
Teams,
where
I
it's-
would agree with
yeah,
that, yeah,
so-
but not in a
yeah.
face-to-face
see anything
manner.
wrong with
I don't
me.
want anyone coming to my house and
No,
meeting
and
with my
you
neighbor.
can, and exactly, Frank, and you can say, hey, I just want Microsoft
Yeah,
meeting.
yes.
But it is really important to a lot of kids to know their teachers and teachers to know their students, so they know how to teach them. Because every child
agreed.
is different. So if there are, and it would be optional with the teachers, and I surely wish that the teachers would want to, hey, let's meet at this pavilion at Netherford Park. Even if it's 2 kids, I'll sit in the middle and you 2 on the ends. 20 minutes, I want to get to know you. And something like that.
Well, and
just
there
with them
is some sort of
visits.
an opportunity for that because we do have devices that need rolled out, correct? So
Exactly.
at some point, they have to come to pick up those devices and that, so even if it's across the room, to where you can at least, meet with them that way.
Now,
There are some.
I'm throwing this out without
Yeah.
any details, but That is what I mean right now. We need to work on those details and the lack of internet and the remote learning instead of this.
Yeah. Todd, do we have how many IT folks do you have working for you?
10 technicians, got 3 engineers.
So I mean, it'd be nice if we had, one per school, to just station them in the school and we go back.
We have some ideas.
So let me go over something here that might address everybody's concerns here. Last year, one of the problems we did have was getting student packets to people and children who didn't have the availability for the internet access. What I would like to suggest we look at as a group and suggest to the team. Now again, I'm with Ms. Messenger. This plan is a plan. It's a good plan. It may not be the right plan. Just because it's a good plan doesn't necessarily mean it's the right plan. But what I think we should look at doing is a phased opening of teachers starting out in, let's say, odd grades. They go to their buildings and they teach on Monday and Tuesday. Then even grade teachers go to the building and teach Wednesday and Thursday. We do a deep cleaning of the building on Friday, and everybody works remotely on Friday. All the students stay remote Friday, stay Monday through Friday, and then we go and pick up the devices, and the teachers can work to pick up the devices and the packets for those that we can't get together immediately. So it gives them the ability to have limited contact with the teacher or with a student so that they can get the devices that they need for online. And if they can't access the online, then we still have the packet option. But it comes in to play where we go 9 weeks, let's say 9 weeks, without having students in school, and we reassess at that 9-week time frame. After that 9-week time frame, we say, okay, is it working? Are we better or are we worse? If we're better, then maybe we phase in students on a phased plan of bringing them in a staggered schedule. And then we go another 9 weeks. I mean, we have to look at this from a staggered situation to minimize as much exposure to as large a group of people as possible. So I don't know if that's something that we could consider, but my thought is that it would be something that would be worth looking into.
If a teacher goes to school by herself and sits in her room, what exposure does she have? I just think, once again, we're adding difficulty to what we want is normalcy, as normal as possible. And I think, a teacher should go in just like she's supposed to and teach just those hours. I'm so tired, and it's so upsetting when I hear when teachers aren't returning or they got emails until midnight, someone doesn't log on. There's no way to make our students or our teachers accountable when you just have a free-for-all. This way, if the student doesn't log on at 8:30 into biology, he's absent. It's that simple. And the teacher is there, and if he's not logged on, there's no contact there. I mean, I just think normalcy is what we're trying to get without contact, and the only way to do that is to keep our school schedule, lunch hours, breaks. If it's phys ed, I mean, sit there and the coach could be in, okay, let's do jumping jacks, do an exercise routine with everyone together, but they're in their homes. I don't see why we would alternate days. The teachers are not going to be exposed if they walk in and go to their classroom.
Can I just say that we've had that discussion about just remote learning? What was that? Remote learning and looking to see how, and we're so much better prepared. I mean, when we went into remote learning this time, of course, teachers were sent home. A lot of times they didn't have their things and all, all that, the story from March on. If we go back, and our intent is that staff will be in the building starting on the 18th. We've kept that calendar. The state asked us to redo the calendar, and you'll see that in there, that we return our staff. The staff will be reporting, working their regular schedules. We will have staff there to reach out to students and to do the work that you're talking about that we didn't have before. We're going to have our cooks in the building to prepare meals. Even if we stay at a remote learning if the children are not there, we're gonna have our staff there. Our drivers, Jimmy's been working on that, Mr. Lopez, I should say, been working on things that we can do. And I did speak with Dr. Haig directly about, what are we gonna do for that 20% that we're saying didn't have internet or services? And I was on a conference call with Representative McKinley, and then we also did one with Senator Manchin. And the broadband issue is real, and they realize it's real, but it's not going to be fixed for this school season. The counties it's not within our purview to really, we can do hotspots and we can do those sorts of things, but this is going to take a concerted effort statewide to get broadband everywhere it needs to be. And in fact, when I was on the conference call with Senator Manchin, it kept cutting out. And he kept losing contact with us, and it was frustrating for him. I'm not sure where he was located at the time. And so that just reiterated to him and several people said on that call, this is what our teachers are doing. This is what everybody's doing when they're on a Teams meeting, trying to make contact with kids. So we know that, and the kids that have great internet services, we're going to reach those kids. And I think our remote learning plan is going to be, it's going to be as good as we can make it. Because we're going to have our people there. It's just reaching that 20% and we have already decided we're going to be doing, it'll be a paper packet. They're going to be available. We haven't, figured out exactly. Our teachers will be there, and we'll have aides in the building working on that. They're going to be accessible. Teachers will be able to, talk with each other. So our intent is that all staff will be going back on the 18th working. So we can make remote learning work if that's the way we start our school year.
I feel we should start remote learning. In my opinion, that's the way that we should go. I like the idea of remote learning right now. I like the idea of a staggered schedule where you have half the teachers show up for a couple of days and the half show up the other day. Because if you have 90 teachers in the building, all right, you can take 45 of those teachers and you can set them into one school, and you could have them come in for a couple of days. They could be accessible to their students just the same at a 1 to 2 day a week schedule as they could a 5 day a week schedule. And then you could have the other set of 45 teachers come in and do the same thing. I just think that it's important to limit big, large groups as much as possible.
I think there's another.
Even if they are stuck in their room.
Yeah, there's another point to that, Mr. Devano, and I agreed originally. Let's get them in there, and I understand where Ms. Messenger's coming from. It's normalcy. It's 5 days a week. You're back to that. They're in there. The only other issue with that, and this is why what Mr. Devano says makes a little bit more sense, is if you have half the staff in for a 2-day period and then the other half in the other 2-day period, if there's an outbreak among the staff, you haven't lost the entire staff. If the whole staff is back into school and one teacher, then you've got to quarantine everyone, so we can't remote learn. However, if Monday or Tuesday there's an outbreak, then you only have to worry about quarantining those other staff members that were there that day with that infected staff member.
And you could take that, you could insert an additional day in there instead of having the other half of the teachers come in. On let's say Wednesday, you could do a deep clean on Wednesday.
See, I would do Monday, Tuesday, clean on Wednesday. That gives you an extra day between the two sets of employees, and then Thursday, Friday, you have them in. That way, if there's an infection on Monday with a staff member that was there Monday and Tuesday, you have that day of separation for the testing. But that way you're not losing, because otherwise, if everyone's there and one person gets sick, then you've shut all of it down.
So on the days that you're staggering, the teachers will still be teaching, but from home?
Absolutely.
Yes. But in the building, if they're all in there and one person gets sick, then they're all quarantined back to their house anyway, so we have to shut down the building.
So the teachers will still be teaching 5 days a week, just 2 days in the office and two days off, and then on the 5th day when we're sanitizing, what do teachers do?
They teach.
They would still teach. Just no one's in the building that day.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the building is shut down that day for cleaning.
I think Dr. Haig has a comment about the plan. Yes.
If you look at the chart on page 38, and this chart is what would be distributed to parents, But if you look at the chart, it says that if we have 14 or more cases in Harrison County, we would start under a level 3, which puts all of our students remote, at home, and our staff in the building, which I think is solving what you're talking about now. Your plan actually includes that dynamic. So if we started school today with 14 or more cases, your students would not report to school. Your staff would be there 5 days a week, serving as a professional, and they would be working from their classrooms and their work site. So you,
But what if one gets sick out of that?
as you said, Mr.
Then you
Hamrick,
shut it- you
then
shut
you
it
would
down.
shut that building down, just like if your office had a case, you
Yeah.
would shut that down. So your plan provides for what you're talking about, and if we opened schools tomorrow, all of your students would be at home.
Okay, so, in other words, you're saying, the plan is here,
It is.
then why can't we just as a board say, we wanna start out the first 9 weeks at level 3?
You could.
That's a
You absolutely could.
And
You know, I don't
It's in
think,
your plan.
I don't think we're here today. I think we're here today to gather more information, not only from the teachers, but also, concerns of parents from the emails that we're getting. I think that we need to, as a board and as a staff here, I think we need to sit down and have another meeting, and we meet with each other, discuss the areas that we've been presented today, and take all that into consideration, look at the plan that Dr. Haig has put together, and I think that we can take some bits and pieces and put a solid plan, I think that would be, to everybody's benefit. Not only to the teachers, but to the kids, to the parents. We're never going to satisfy everybody. I don't care how many plans you have, you're not going to make everybody happy. And ultimately, you just try and do the best you can for the majority of the people, and we go that way. I just don't think that we can, we've heard a lot of good things here today, but I just don't think that we're ready to come out and say, this is the way we're going to do it. I'm not ready to take a vote on a plan, because I think that we need to meet with all the elementary principals, just with the elementary principals, and see how things function in their schools and things that are needed for them. I think we need to meet with the middle school principals to see how things go in their building and what would work well. Same thing with the high school. And then take everything, all the information we have, and come up with a plan. There's no need to make a plan 50 pages long. We got to simplify things. They always said use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. So we just take and put a plan together, but we need to do it, we're trading daylight for darkness. But we have teachers coming back in middle of August where we can have in-services, remote training, to improve that. I also, biggest complaint that I would hear last year when we got this all started, because it fell on everybody at one time, was that there was way too much work given to the kids, and the parents didn't understand. It took too long. Kids were up late at night. They was frustrated. The parents were frustrated. So I think that we need to that has to be part of the plan, where we simplify things down that the kids can work on, understand, and parents are able to give them some assistance and help, and it has to change day to day. But then it doesn't also overwork our teachers to the point that they get all this work and they have to end up trying to get it graded and grades recorded and things of that nature there. If it's as simple as if you're doing certain math problems, you don't have to do 50 when you can do the same math problems and do 5 and understand how it works. So I think that that's a thing that we have to take into consideration, is the amount of work. Because there was people saying, our kids are getting more work remotely than if they was in the classroom, they would never get that much work or things be covered that much,
And they're teaching,
you
that's
know.
the problem. They were just being given work.
Well-
That's why, I mean, some did, I'm not saying but essentially, there was not a scheduled teaching period, more, these are your assignments. And that's the same complaints that I got, that there were assignments after assignments and no one to know how to do them and no one available to teach them. And that's why I agree with that, there has to be accountability for both the student and the teacher. And it should be
And I
long
think that
hours,
was part of not having
a plan.
people to collaborate
Right.
with and to
And-
talk
and
to,
I
because they
agree.
got thrown into that,
Yeah.
and
I agree
we were
with-
learning that as we were going.
I agree with, as far as the
Yeah.
plan, we can continue tweaking the plan, but I think at some point, there needs to be that decision made that
But-
we're not going back for 9 weeks remote learning. How we arrive at that or whatever, we can work on at a later date, but I'm telling you,
Well, how
the
much
numbers aren't
later?
coming down.
How
And
much later? That's
that's
my
what I'm saying,
feelings.
but, I mean, we can work on
Well,
whatever.
when do we
reentry
have to
plan.
have our plan submitted to the state? Well, August 14th?
Well, that's what I was going to say too. I know that plan is lengthy, but we were given a charge by the state to put together a plan, and we had to address everything from teacher attendance to student attendance. So that's why, a lot of that is in there, and there's been discussions about all of that. So that and then the handouts that were given to us from the state in our toolkit are on the back of that plan too, just for reference. So there's a
So
lot
let me
of
ask you this real
information
quick.
in there.
Is this plan gonna be like a calendar where we submit a plan and they kick it back and say, no? we don't
No,
like your plan"?
they just wanted each county to submit what their reentry plan looked like, and they gave us guidelines. So, I mean, we followed those guidelines. There were some concerns with the stakeholder group, correct, Dr. Haig, on doing remote learning and having kids in class at the same time. Like, teachers felt they would be overwhelmed if they had a group of kids at home and they're trying to teach the 10 that are home, and then you've got 10 in your classroom, that they felt they couldn't manage doing both of that. So we were trying to look.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's
too
why
much.
we were looking at a different option. There's been a lot of discussion on how to deal with that, all the concerns that were brought up. And the different option was the virtual option, which that's just really come to light here in the last, couple weeks. And we were doing, I did talk to Dr. Haig, we need to do a simple parent handout, a simple teacher handout to, reduce that down. And that's in the works.
Now,
But we wanted to get the plan out.
But another thing, is you
Yes.
look at this country right now. The President of the United States said he wants all the kids back in school, okay? So he hands it down to the governors. The governors have now taken it. Well, they're not gonna make a decision. They're gonna say, well, we're gonna hand it down to each county, to the superintendents. Superintendents work on a plan, they bring it to us as a board, and ultimately, we have to make a vote on what's gonna transpire in. My thing is, I'm concerned about one group, and that is the students, staff, parents of Harrison County. I don't care what takes place in Doddridge County. I don't care what takes place in Nicholas County. We need to be, our focus has to be on Harrison County and how we can serve the greater needs of our kids, period.
When we're talking about kids, I mean, I like all of this. I go back to when I was an officer and the amount of child abuse and neglect that we dealt with. The drugs have not gone away during this time. There's still kids trapped at home, and the safest place they can be is in our schools. I know there's this concern, but man, my heart breaks for these kids, because you guys don't know what it's like to go on a call and see that little kid who has just been abused.
I was a
or
CPS
neglected.
worker.
You do. You'd be the only one.
I
But I'm telling you-
was a principal in a middle school and a high school.
Right.
And I saw the things that went on there.
But when you go to
Yeah.
when you go to the house and you see it, it's mind blowing what these kids are going through. So I agree with all of you, and it's these kids in Harrison County while we're here, and I want to keep them safe. I understand I like the idea of remote learning for the first 9 weeks, but for those, I wish for the special needs kids that they were talking about, like, where they need that interaction. I think it's a fantasy land to think that you're gonna have a parent who's gonna sit down with these kids at home, especially on the elementary side, and help them and guide them what the teacher's doing. So we really have to think this through and not just, well, we'll do it all remote. That might work for the majority, but there's those kids, those special needs, or those kids whose parents are not involved in their life whatsoever, who are neglected or abused, and what about them? So, I mean, it's just hard, and I think there's something we can do, I'm just not.
That's why I mentioned that the communities have to step up with us in we are not social services, but we need social services. That's also why I think it's important for the teacher to know the student, so they're aware, and because they aren't gonna be there every day, Michael, and I agree with that, and it's a fear of mine too, but we just can't solve everything and every element of this. And we need to reach out and involve our communities, our sheriff's office, the social workers. I mean, we just have to teach a little different than we used to.
And if a kid doesn't log on for 3 days, we need a PRO or someone to go check on
There's
it.
a problem.
See, but that's the type of stuff that
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, is going, okay.
We can
I
handle that,
understand
but, you know, Ms. Messenger's right, and I'm a former social worker, and I know, and I, worked in the prosecutor's office, I know all that. And it's great that we can feed kids and we can do these other, but our main focus is education of these kids. And there are other agencies that need to step up. Child Protective Services need to step up. If they're special needs kids, they generally have a worker, whether it's the ARC or some other agency that's being paid to help with those services as well. They need to step up and do a little bit more. And, so most really extreme special needs students have a worker of some sort. So we need, collaborate with them, but Ms. Messenger's right, is that we've become the everything. I mean, if it, we're feeding, we have to do everything, that's fine, because it needs to be done, but our primary goal is to make sure our students, have a safe building. Because we can't send, and I've said this how many times, is it's a tough thing to go through. But I believe in the data and the science, and if someone says, this is bad, this is a pandemic, and you shouldn't do this because of this, well, someone told Don Blankenship that, from the Mine Safety Health Administration, said, don't send him down to that coal mine, and he did anyway. And then he got prosecuted for it because he didn't believe the data. I believe the data, and I think we have to take that data and make sure that everyone involved is safe, and that's what we do. We can build on the other stuff from there, but the primary goal is not to send them into an unsafe building. That's the easiest thing. The rest of it, you're right. We need to get with the PROs. Hopefully the PROs will still be involved with the schools, and maybe since they don't have students there, they can get involved with some of the other schools as well. And a teacher knows, and a principal knows, hey, this kid hasn't logged on for a week, maybe go do a courtesy call.
That's the accountability I was talking about,
Okay.
by having a schedule.
I think everything we've gotten today is great input from everybody that spoke, but I think, Mr. President, I think we need to really, right now, take all this information we've got, let's put a caboose on this train today, and move on to other business that we have, but let's take everything that we've gotten today and go to work on trying to come up with the best plan possible. And it's gonna take more than this meeting today.
Doug, with riding off of what Doug just said, I mean, time is our element here. We can't wait another 2 weeks.
Right.
No.
So although I want to put this to bed right now, we really can't without some directive. Are we
Yeah,
gonna
right.
have another meeting?
I mean, we can
let's
set
look into
if someone wants to have another work session or a meeting on this, we have some personnel issues, if you want to do it next Tuesday, I don't know if everyone's
I think
available.
we need that.
If we're available at noon. But I will say, to the people who are listening, I think everyone should have a sense that this board is heading in the direction that we better plan on remote learning. I mean, that's the sense that we have, and I agree that's where we need. And once we make that decision and we take off, then we can use our time best at getting better at remote learning. So
When can we have this meeting?
we can do it next Tuesday, whatever time. I mean, Frankie, can you do it at noon, or do you? You need it later?
No, I can't. I need a later start. I have to do 3 or after.
Can we do a Monday?
Is any day next week would have to be after 3?
No, just Tuesday and Wednesday.
How about
after 3.
Monday?
How about Monday then?
Monday's fine. I can do Monday at noon.
Okay,
So Monday at noon?
yep.
Okay,
Are we just gonna call that a work session or?
Yeah, work session
session
on
on
this, and you can
reentry?
put personnel issues on there if you
Okay.
personally.
need be. And hopefully, if everyone sees that this is kind of the direction, you won't have as many retirements on there.
Yeah,
We
that's
can only
another
have-
big concern in
Yeah.
substitutes.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, statewide, that's a concern, staffing.
Well, and the
will be a
substitute,
concern.
I've had some substitutes saying
Yeah.
they won't be on the list if we're open. And my other question, the big question is if we do open full board, of course, it looks like that's a moot point. You've got a substitute, you know, just as she said on there with itinerant. They're in one building Monday, one on Tuesday, they've infected 3 buildings just in 1 week by the time they find out they're infected. So that's why there's just too many unknowns to continue. So we'll set that for Monday at noon.
Yeah,
For
and,
another-
and I think it's important that we have, you know, besides the board, but we have, you know, Mr. Ammons, the food service, Mr. Tarico, Bus, everybody here at the, you know, this meeting.
And just kind of
And then-
plan for what we're going to look like with
And then
distance learning
if we
from
could,
the
if
school.
we could stagger the principal
Principals
groups,
to come in, okay.
you know, because it can't be a short meeting. It's gonna take a little time. So I think if you can, you know, get their input, and then they can leave or whatever, so.
And one more thing, can you please describe, tell everyone the definition of remote and virtual learning?
Sure.
So everyone understands and we're all saying the right terminology.
When we're talking about remote learning, that's what our teachers are doing. Just what you left the end of the school year going into that few weeks, that's remote learning. That's our teachers teaching your set of kids. Like if it's your classroom, you're remote learning with that group of kids. Virtual learning and with the virtual schools was something, and you'll see the update to the virtual schools policy. They've changed that, and Dr. Haig's been dealing with some of that. We now can use our own instructors to do some virtual learning, but it is the state's curriculum. The kids enroll in that. We can offer that if they don't want to attend every day into school. They can do virtual learning, so they can enroll in that. You have to enroll for the semester. It's not necessarily our teachers all the time. They can be teachers from all around the state. It's the state's curriculum, but we still count them. They're still our students in Harrison County. That's really the difference. Remote learning is our teachers teaching their group of kids in their classroom.
In that class, they may be on there with 20 other students from all over the
Yeah,
state.
virtual learning. Dr. Haig, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that
Really?
sums it up really well. There's
Yeah.
a handout in their packets that we would release to parents.
And that's the one, we have some local teachers that do virtual
We do.
learning, and, yeah.
Now, would our students be able to do both?
No, the way it's rolling out, they would enroll in virtual learning. They would have to say, I'm doing that for the semester. And then if they see the second semester, we're going back and they want to return back into a normal, classroom, then they can. But if they opt into virtual learning, they're in that for the semester. Because it would be difficult to have them going in and out of that,
Well, my question
so.
was, like, I remember when this first came out, I thought it was not really for core classes, but more of someone that wanted to move ahead in math or.
Maybe initially,
When it
but
started,
they've
there was just a
expanded it.
few.
Yeah, now they've expanded it to
everything.
K-12. That just
Yeah.
really rolled out, 2 weeks ago maybe?
Okay,
We were
okay.
hearing about it, and then, so they've really opened it up just for counties to have that as an option during this.
Yeah, because I remember, and also for like if Bridgeport has aeronautics and like RCB has agriculture, maybe you can take agriculture if you go to Bridgeport, that's what I thought
Right.
virtual learning was for. But this is good to know that now it's core.
Well, I
and
think you're
almost
even
everything.
thinking of maybe distance learning. That's even different.
Okay, what's distance?
Yeah, distance learning is when you have a classroom of kids at Liberty and
Or
or wherever. and
Driver's
that-
ed, we do
Driver's ed, or say Liberty, I'm just gonna use this as an example, and they're having Spanish at Liberty in the classroom, teachers there, and there's a group of kids. Well, you can have a group of kids, logged on at Bridgeport with just a facilitator there.
Okay.
Seeing that teacher interacting with that other group of kids, that's
We do
distance
try to
learning.
present that.
And we do that when we,
Yeah,
you know,
I second
can.
that. Well, I think it's
Yeah.
important that everybody knows what each one means.
And that may be good when you start sending these out to put a key of the
That's-
terminology.
That's
with
what we were talking about, just defining those things. So it's
Okay.
really, the virtual has really developed in the last couple of weeks to expand
Okay.
to meet
Okay.
our needs in the county.
All right, well, that moves us down to superintendent's update. Do you have anything other than what we've spent?
I'll try to be quick. Under curriculum, the board has just pre-K enrollment. Of course, we had to go online with our pre-K enrollment numbers, and I think Dr. Haig just wanted to share these numbers. We're really right on track.
Yeah, it's pretty consistent with what we've had previous years. It was interesting because we did an all online format. By the end of October, we're usually a little over 650 registered for pre-K, so you can see the amount of students that did pre-register, so that's a good sign.
Did we stay with the, I consider terrible format of first come, first serve regardless of where?
It was online, and so we did a timestamp.
Okay. I still don't like it. I mean, I just don't like that you have to be first to the, until they fill up. I mean, it should, when you've got a pre-K in Norwood and you have to drive them to Bridgeport because Norwood's filled up and they can see the school, I don't know.
That's something with the enrollment for, I know you with the whole arena scheduling
Yeah.
thing, that's something we'll look
Yeah,
at.
the roundup.
If we ever get back to some typical
Yeah.
situation with
I didn't have
enrollment.
to wait in line this year.
But it's nice, the online option, So,
Yeah,
you don't
online's
know
fine,
until you do that. The other thing under curriculum is a needs assessment for parents and guardians. And this might be something we could carry over to that special meeting or to talk about. It's really trying to get our informational technology needs. If you would like to see that handout. Is there anything, Dr. Haig, you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, it was just a technology needs, mental health needs. Parents could indicate if they had any of those. Health plan needs. They also could indicate if they are interested in virtual school, remote learning, or physically sending their child to school. So we could gather some numbers on that.
Yeah.
And back to, I guess, reentry real quick. Even if we're going on the premise that the teachers are in the building without students, but we do have teachers, whether it's half or all, do we still have any plans to get with the health department and test our teachers?
Yes, Jody Sperry, that is in this reentry plan. It's all encompassing, it really
Okay.
is. But it is in there that she'll start those August 24th,
Okay.
and the nurses and the health department will be coming to the schools.
Okay,
Instead of a drive.
thank you.
27th at noon, right? 27th at noon.
24th, they're gonna start building by building.
No, I mean-
Oh, she's
Or
talking about
meeting.
the meeting,
Yeah,
yeah.
Monday.
Yeah,
Monday.
we are making, it is a voluntary, if you would like to be tested, and the group of nurses are our own school nurses, and they're coordinating, I think, with PEIA, getting the test kits, everything covered, so they can visit each of your schools when you get
And
back
I
in
know
your
it's
building.
voluntary, but if we're
So-
talking about, teachers who have come to us and said, we want it to be as safe as can be, I'm hoping that we have high participation in that. If they're truly wanting it to be safe, then I'm hoping that they participate and are tested.
Right. The other thing under curriculum updates is West Virginia Virtual Schools, and there's a handout in there for the board members to see. Just kind of explaining that. It's a parent and guardian information sheet. So,
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Lopez, anything on facilities? Update
One
us on?
important thing to note is that we will be doing the bid opening for the Lost Creek Elementary School project this Thursday. And speaking to President Hammer, also to Joyce Vangill from the School Building Authority, it appears that some of the other bid openings have come in under budget throughout the state. So we're hopeful that will happen, cautiously optimistic.
The judicial annex bids were open last week, and they were $5 million under budget, which is,
That's
which is good news
encouraging.
for
Yeah,
us.
it's encouraging.
That's really the most important thing to note, unless anybody has any other questions.
I do, just one before we go on a little farther. I brought it up in the last few meetings on bidding. we have another bid today that we're approving, the lowest bid, and it's within just $1,000 or so from a Harrison County company. My question is, since, I mean, are we not allowed to make that choice, or as a board, do we have to go with the very lowest? I mean,
Well,
I'm just asking for a guideline here, because when I see a couple $1,000, I mean, this is the second time it's going to Mon County, which it's not that I don't like Mon County. I'm just saying, I'd like to keep it in Harrison County.
What has been explained to me is that going local is not justification for not taking the lower bid. I guess you could use another criteria, but not necessarily because they're local. So I, you know.
But do we as a board
And
have
I
to
think
take
we're
the
about
lowest bid?
There is no local vendor preference, there's a state preference. So if we had an out-of-state company trying to bid against a West Virginia company, you can apply a preference and knock off a percentage of their bid to make them lower, but there is not a local vendor preference. So the only way you can't take the lowest bid is if there's something about their bid that you don't think.
Or we used them before in the
Yeah,
past.
if there's a problem with that company, or if there's a, whatever, that you wouldn't take it with that company. Because that company then would have a.
I just can't, as a board member, say no and say, for $2,000 on a $200,000 bid, I'd much rather it stay in Harrison County. I mean, I can do that, right?
Well,
Because that's how I
You'd
feel.
be violating the procedures that we're supposed to follow, but you could.
But I, as an
But you could
individual.
certainly do that.
I just don't understand that. It makes me upset when I see
I mean, there
that.
should be a local preference of 10%.
Yeah, there's a state preference, but not a local preference.
Who do you contact on that?
I guess the Department of
Auditors.
Education.
Well, the auditor's office,
Yeah,
probably.
Probably the
it's-
auditor's office.
I think that's something we should do.
It's part of policy 8200, so.
I think
And
whoever.
maybe if we look and see, can we have a local policy?
No, well, you can look, but
Yeah.
we've looked before, so I know we
Yeah,
can't.
I mean,
Well, I would like to
because there
contact
are
it and request it,
municipalities
because that
and
upsets
counties that
me.
have local policies.
Yeah,
that
I
could
know
be-
there's only a
For bids
state
to
vendor
go for
preference, but we can check again.
Check, and if we can have a local policy and we pass that, then to give generally 10 or
Preference,
10%. They're the ones paying property taxes that pay our teachers'
They still have to pay
wage.
the taxes when they're here, they have to pay.
I know,
No, but I
but,
mean.
but if they're a local company in the county, they're paying here every 365 days a
And
year.
their kids go to our schools, or they graduated from our schools, and I don't know.
We'll check to see if we
Okay.
can do that. If we can develop our own policy, then
Yeah.
we'll
I,
we'll do that.
thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Nothing else.
That moves us down to the approval of consent items. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent items. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Memorandum of Understanding, Fairmont State University. Ms. Stetler.
I make a motion, we accept the understanding for Fairmont State University.
That's for our student teachers?
Yeah, that's just to have student teachers in our building. We'll see how that looks. But we're going to approve it in case.
Okay, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Authorization of payment for private school employees for 2020, 2021.
I make a motion to approve the authorization of payment for private school employees 2021.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I guess for clarification, you can explain that this is,
It's something we do every year, and it's through federal programs. We have
Okay.
Lola here, if you have any questions.
no, it's just the
Yeah.
pass-through money for the
Yeah.
federal funds that pass through us
It
to go
is.
to private schools. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Proposed revisions to the 2021 Harrison County school calendar.
All right, the state, this is what I was alluding to earlier, has requested that we try to form our calendar in a way that we can still reflect 180 instructional days. And if you'll notice on the calendar that was published or put out for your review, the state has allowed us some non-traditional days, which would be a remote learning situation. and we can count those as instructional days. And then at the beginning of that calendar, generally, out-of-school environment days are placed at the end of the calendar. Those are like the ones for snow days, and you use them for makeup. They've allowed us to move those to the beginning of the calendar. We were allowed to use those wherever we needed to use those. And if you look at that calendar, we've placed those on a Friday, Monday. So we've done that twice, and then to get that, since the student start date was September 8th. Because we wanted to keep that calendar as close as the one that was adopted as possible.
Is there a date this has to be approved by to send back to the state?
No, they waived that. They told us that we really didn't, as long as we could make the revisions and get it back to them, they're wanting it pretty soon. Yeah, but we wanted the board to take a look at that.
I had parents ask me if they could get an actual, like, calendar that they can understand. A lot of parents have.
Oh, like the,
Like your typical.
Yeah, so it
calendar.
doesn't say first month, second
Yeah.
month,
Yeah.
put the actual month in there.
Yeah, because the parents confused, like, what am I looking at?
yeah, that's the template that we use to
Yeah.
send it back, and as soon as this gets approved, we'll send that down, and then they'll approve it. They've been approving the ones the counties have been sending, so we'll see.
Right, but
And
just
then
when the parents are looking
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
this, when they're
An
trying
actual-
to understand.
Instead of
it.
saying first month, it says August.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
question is, should we wait and maybe table this until after we discuss more on the reopening plan for next week, or the reentry plan for next week, in case some of those things would change or the
But I
dates
think
may change?
either way, I mean, we were
Well,
planning on this.
yeah, it's just that really, the calendar's not going to change that much. The 200-day employment term for employees is there. I mean, they're gonna start regardless on the 18th, and the point of that was, so there's more professional development days at the beginning and prep time for remote learning, if we needed to do that. That's why those, days were moved, like the PL days that were built throughout the calendar, throughout the year, all moved to the front end. So teachers would get back in their buildings, they would get that beginning of the year CE that's required finished, and then I have directed, that we do not do a lot of extra, we're not doing extra trainings and things other than things that teachers need to do to prepare for remote learning. So they will be using those days, they have 8 days, I believe, 8 days to prepare. So I don't know what changes you would make. If you change anything on the up end, you're gonna make them longer they'll go longer in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
I make a motion we approve the
I'll
revisions.
second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Memorandum of Understanding between Glenville State College. Do they still have a college here? I know they got
Yes,
new-
they do.
They got new
Mark this one up.
They got
They
new
have no-
president. I figured it'd be
They,
gone.
they have no leader, but they have a school. Okay.
He asked for that personally to go on.
Is there motion?
I make the motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Glenville State College and Harrison County Board of Education gladly.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Daughtry. Any discussion? I would hand deliver or make him come up here and pick it up.
I will.
And he can buy lunch.
And he can buy
Take us
lunch.
to lunch.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Bid for Liberty High School paving. And those are the aforementioned bids that came in.
I make a motion, we accept the bid as presented, the lowest bid as presented.
And that would be Anders Excavating in Morgantown, West Virginia, and the amount of $155,812.50. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Devano. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Brings us down to policy updates. Harrison County Schools Policy 5505, exemption to compulsory school attendance requirement for homeschooled students.
Mr. President, we have, this policy needed to be updated according to some changes at the state level. So, Dr. Hake, would you like to talk about that? Well, Mr. Kirby, he did. He made the revisions to that. Sorry about that, Mr. Kirby.
It's just Kirby.
Yeah,
It's not-
see.
What you guys are looking at basically is just the state law. The beginning of this talks about the maintaining the exemption, what everything has to be in place by the parents to continue to homeschool, what is expected to be returned to the school system to make sure that they are meeting the guidelines that are required. In here, it also talks about the new homeschool status and extracurricular interscholastic athletic events and activities that the children now can be partaking in as a part of the Tim Tebow law that did pass, was signed into law. And then the other part of it is you'll notice that there is a returning to the public school system from homeschool and what they can expect when they do that. This has been in place with the exception of the athletic part. This has been in place since 1986.
Just an update to our policy to add the
Yes.
new language.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Kirby.
you.
What about the
Revisions.
reentry plan?
Huh?
Did you jump over the reentry plan?
We already did it. We did it.
Oh,
We
okay.
moved.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Revisions to Harrison County Policy 5701, virtual school.
This policy revision is really just to update the stuff that we're getting out of the State Department on virtual schools and adding the K-5 component, and then there were some other revisions that she made.
Also requires students
Yeah.
that are enrolled virtually to take our general summative assessment to keep.
Oh,
our
that was,
participation rate up.
yeah. They'll be required to test with our kids as well. So that's really the only revisions that,
That'll be updates to the Tim Tebow law, so now
Oh.
homeschool students to participate.
same thing that he had.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Huh?
She made a
I'll second that.
recommendation.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
She made a recommendation. The principal.
Oh,
She
okay.
interviewed him
All
to
right.
have time.
That brings us down to personnel.
Make a motion, we accept the personnel as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
The moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I have to recuse myself.
Back up.
I think it's just a volunteer, but still.
Okay. We'll note the recusal of Ms. Messenger.
What was that? I saw it and now I don't.
It's at the end. It should be on the last, page 6 of for volunteer coaches.
Page 6.
Yeah.
I'm blind, I do not see it.
What's the name?
Greg Noon.
I thought that was on the last one.
I know, I saw it on this one and now I don't see it.
No, I think it was on the last.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's not.
it was on the last one,
Are
I
you
think.
thinking about
Think-
Greg?
Yeah, I think you
Uh-huh.
recused
Yeah,
yourself
was
from
on the
that.
last
Yeah, he's not on this
Yeah,
current.
you'd already, yeah.
Right church, wrong pew.
All right, so no recusal. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Mr. Hogue?
Children of peace, go in peace.